Have you ever stopped to consider that perhaps the anxiety you feel isn't just a symptom of something physical? And more importantly, could it be a sign that you're ignoring something much deeper? Something inside you that screams for attention, but that you've been refusing to listen to? We humans are so used to being in a rush all the time. Modern life forces us to keep moving forward, to go with the flow, to deal with all the external demands without ever truly pausing to look within ourselves. And anxiety, it arises when, deep down, we know we're not heading in the right direction, that we're procrastinating the change we know we need to make but don't have the courage to face. That tight feeling in your chest, the racing thoughts, the pounding heart, it's all telling you something. And if you stop and listen, you'll realize that anxiety isn't actually controlling you by accident. It's a reflection of your internal struggle, something you've ignored for too long. It arises because you're living below your means, and that eats away at you. But what if, instead of running away from it, you decided to use this anxiety as a guide? What if, instead of seeing it as an enemy, you saw it as an opportunity? What would it take for you to truly face all of this and finally live the life you know you're capable of? The truth is, no one escapes pain. No matter who you are, we all face difficult times, moments of frustration, and yes, moments of suffering. This is what makes us human. However, there's a stark difference between the pain of growing up and the suffering of living paralyzed by anxiety. I know, you've felt it. The weight of life, that fatigue that never seems to go away, the constant fear that something might go wrong. And the worst part? Knowing you're not living up to your potential. You look at your life and feel like you're just existing, not truly being who you should be. You feel like you're giving less of yourself than you could. And that, my friend, eats away at you. Not just mentally, but physically as well. The anxiety you feel isn't just a reflection of what you're going through, but a reflection of who you're not being. It arises because there's a disconnect between who you are now and who you could be. You feel like you're adrift, and the more you try to distance yourself from the pain, the closer it gets. It's as if anxiety is a shadow that grows as you move away from it. This happens because deep down, you know, you're ignoring something crucial. You know there's a path to be followed, but you're afraid to take the first step, and this disconnect only increases the weight of anxiety. Most people aren't anxious because they have a chemical problem in their brain. Anxiety arises because deep down they know they're not living up to their potential. They know they have something to do, something to change, but they keep hiding behind excuses. And that's what really hurts. It's not the anxiety itself, but the inability to act. Anxiety is a signal. It's the echo of a life poorly lived. But here's the big takeaway. This suffering doesn't have to be eternal. You have the power to change the narrative. You don't have to keep letting anxiety control your thoughts, your body, your actions. And to do that, you need to understand one important thing. The pain of growing up, of becoming the person you know you can be, is a pain worth bearing. The pain of growing up is a sign that you're on the right path. It's difficult, no doubt, but it's not paralyzing. On the contrary, it pushes you forward, propels you forward. By dealing with it, you find strength, purpose, and clarity. On the other hand, living paralyzed by anxiety is a pain that eats away at your soul, day after day. It's the pain of knowing you're wasting your potential, that you're living below your potential, and it's this suffering that, little by little, undermines your vitality and peace of mind. The good news is that you can choose the pain you carry. You can choose the pain of growth or the pain of regret. Which will you choose? Have you ever stopped to reflect on what Jordan Peterson tells us about suffering? He teaches us that we cannot escape it. You don't run away from suffering. You choose the kind of suffering you're willing to bear. This phrase has immense power because deep down, we all face pain. But what really matters is how we choose to face that pain. You may suffer from not facing the truths that are right in front of you. You may suffer because you're hiding from yourself, running away from what you know needs to change but don't have the courage to face. And this suffering is silent, constant, and slowly drains your strength. Fear takes over, and you find yourself trapped in a vicious cycle of paralysis. Or you can choose to suffer to become the person you were meant to be. And that doesn't mean the path will be easy. It doesn't mean that by making this decision, all your problems will disappear overnight. No, it's a different kind of suffering. Suffering with purpose. And when you choose this kind of suffering, an internal transformation begins to take place. You begin to understand that the pain you feel is not an obstacle, but an opportunity for growth. The suffering of becoming who you are, of realizing your potential, will take you to places you never imagined. It will push you out of your comfort zone, challenge your beliefs, and question what you knew until then. But in the end, it will lead you to a place where anxiety no longer has power over you. Because when you find your true purpose, when you choose to live authentically, anxiety stops being an enemy and becomes an ally on your journey. Jordan Peterson also reminds us that the truly worthwhile things in life never come without sacrifice. Success, personal growth, peace of mind, all of these require a willingness to face your fears. And the greatest fear of all, often, is the fear of facing yourself. The fear of looking within and realizing that you're running away from your true essence. Instead of being held hostage by anxiety, you can transform your life. But this requires a conscious decision to face the pain of growth, the pain of doing what you know you need to do, even if it's difficult. And this choice, this courageous move, will open doors you never knew existed. And that's where the magic happens. The suffering you choose becomes the key to your freedom, and the anxiety that once seemed to dominate your life begins to lose its power. Because when you confront your fears and begin living the life you truly want, anxiety loses its grip on you. It stops being something that paralyzes you and becomes just a memory of the time when you lived without direction. But to get to that point, you have to be willing to face chaos. As Peterson says, that's where your potential lies. Chaos is not something to be feared, but something to be embraced. Because it is in chaos that great transformations happen. When you choose to enter chaos, choose to face anxiety and allow yourself to be transformed by it, you begin to make room for something new. Now the big question is, are you willing to carry this kind of suffering? Are you willing to look within and confront your fears? Are you willing to go through the chaos knowing that on the other side there will be growth, self-knowledge, and freedom? You've probably been taught that anxiety is something to be feared, that it's a sign of weakness, that there's something wrong with you. Maybe you've even felt this way at some point, as if anxiety were something you had to hide, something that made you inferior to others. What if I told you this is all a deception? What if anxiety, instead of being a sign of weakness, was actually your biggest warning sign that you're on the right path? It seems contradictory, doesn't it? How could anxiety be an ally? How could it be something positive, something to be embraced and not rejected? But the truth is, anxiety can be your greatest ally if you learn to listen to it and understand what it's trying to tell you. When you feel anxiety knocking at your door, what's happening is that you're about to face something important. Something you might be afraid to face, something you've ignored for too long but you know deep down needs to be faced. Anxiety isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you're about to do something big, something significant. It arises when you're on the threshold of a transformation, something that will change your life. And yes, this can be terrifying. It may feel like you're about to lose control, that everything could fall apart. But in reality, this is what needs to happen. You need to step out of your comfort zone. You need to challenge the status quo, because it's in this movement of change, of confronting your fears and insecurities, that true transformation happens. Anxiety is telling you that you're about to enter a new phase of your life. And yes, this can be scary. But without this courage, without this willingness to confront the unknown, you will never become the person you were created to be. So the next time you feel anxiety, instead of trying to get rid of it or run away from it, pause and ask, what is she trying to show me? What is about to happen that I am resisting? Anxiety is not the enemy. The real enemy is the fear of change, the fear of leaving your comfort zone, the fear of facing your own truth. And if you keep running away, if you keep ignoring the signs your soul is giving you, anxiety will only grow. It will become stronger and stronger, more unbearable, until you can no longer ignore it. Now, imagine for a moment what would happen if you started seeing anxiety as a friend there to warn you about something important, something you need to face, to grow, to transform. Imagine that. Instead of distancing yourself from anxiety, you start moving closer to it. You start questioning it. You start asking what it's trying to teach you. When you do this, you transform your relationship with anxiety. It stops being something to be feared and becomes a part of your growth process. You stop seeing it as a threat and start seeing it as an opportunity. The opportunity to face what's holding you back, to embrace change, to become the person you always knew you could be. And the most amazing thing is that the more you do this, the easier it becomes. Anxiety loses its power over you. It loses its paralyzing power because you no longer see it as an enemy. You see it as a sign, a guide to your growth. Anxiety then transforms from an unbearable burden into a valuable tool for self-knowledge and evolution. Have you ever stopped to consider that anxiety isn't just a mental problem, but something existential? It's not just a reflection of what's going on in your head, but a reflection of how disconnected you've become from your inner truth. Anxiety is a cry from your soul asking you to look within. It's asking you to listen to yourself, to finally give yourself the time and attention you need to understand what's going on inside you. If you're honest with yourself, you'll realize that anxiety arises when you're distancing yourself from what truly matters, when you're running away from your emotions, your true feelings. Anxiety is a reflection of this, a reflection of your disconnection from yourself. When you ignore your soul's needs, when you distract yourself from the truths you need to face, anxiety arises, and it forces you to look at what you've been ignoring. Self-knowledge, then, isn't something that comes from outside. It's not something you'll find in books or lectures. It comes from within. It comes from the willingness to stop and listen. Listen to your inner voice. Listen to your body's signals. What is your body trying to tell you? What is your mind trying to reveal to you? Anxiety is often a reflection of this. It arises when you begin to disconnect from your essence, when you begin to ignore who you truly are and what you truly want. And the most painful thing of all is that when you don't listen to your inner truth, anxiety grows. It becomes stronger and stronger, harder to control, because deep down it knows you're moving away from who you're supposed to be. You're moving away from your purpose, your authentic emotions, and what truly matters. And anxiety screams because it's trying to wake you up. It's trying to make you realize that if you continue to ignore what's truly important to you, you'll lose yourself. So the question is, what have you been ignoring that you need to face? What have you been putting aside that continues to consume you from within? What in your life is out of order? Are you connecting with what truly matters? Or are you just living for the sake of living, without truly listening to yourself? To reach a place of true peace, you need to go through a process of internal listening. You need to allow yourself to hear what's inside you, without fear or judgment. You need to have the courage to look at your life and face what's not working, because it's only then, when you stop deceiving yourself, that you'll begin to find true peace. And that takes courage. The courage to stop and listen to yourself. The courage to dig deep, to look at the things you've been avoiding. When you start doing this, anxiety begins to lose its power. It stops being an uncontrollable monster and becomes a reflection of your need for change. When you truly listen to yourself, anxiety begins to dissipate because you begin to act in alignment with what you truly need to do. However, don't think it will be a quick process. Don't think it will be easy. Self-knowledge doesn't come overnight. It's a long and challenging journey, but it's a journey worth taking, because in the end, it's what will bring you true freedom. If this conversation has clarified anything within you, give back with whatever you can. A click, a subscription. It shows that it's worth continuing. And that's when you begin to realize something transformative. Anxiety is not the enemy. It's actually a message that you need to connect with your essence, with your inner truth. When you do, anxiety no longer has power over you. It begins to dissolve because you're living in accordance with who you truly are. Jordan Peterson talks about a powerful concept we all need to understand: chaos. He says that to grow, you need to face chaos. This isn't just a metaphor. It's a profound principle of the human psyche. Chaos isn't something to be feared, but something we must face head-on, because it's in chaos that our true potential reveals itself. And that has everything to do with the anxiety you feel. I know it's hard. I know that when anxiety hits, it feels like an uncontrollable monster, an unbearable weight that takes over everything. But the truth is, when you avoid facing chaos, you're moving away from your own evolution. What you don't realize is that this chaos isn't an enemy, but a challenge, an opportunity for change. Have you ever wondered why anxiety becomes so overwhelming? Because you're trying to run from it. You're avoiding what it represents. Anxiety is your being's response to the chaos you're avoiding. It arises because you're not addressing the true cause of your suffering. You're ignoring the inner conflicts, the parts of yourself that need attention. And the only way to end this is to dig deep and confront them. No matter how far you run, chaos will always find you, because it's a part of you, a part you can't simply push aside. So what do you need to do? You need to look within and ask the hard questions. You need to pay attention to your shadows, those parts of your psyche you'd rather ignore. And yes, it will be painful. It will be uncomfortable, but that's how you grow. Chaos is the breeding ground for change, and it's within it that you'll find your true strength. Now the question is, are you ready to step into this chaos? Are you ready to look within and face what's consuming you? I'm not just talking about facing anxiety as a symptom, but facing the deeper truths you've been avoiding. What's really behind this anxiety? What fears have you been ignoring? What parts of your life have you been neglecting because you're afraid to face them? Confronting the shadow requires courage. It requires a kind of strength you may not know you possess. But by doing so, you connect with something much more powerful than anxiety. You connect with your true essence, with your true inner strength. Because when you face the chaos, when you face the fears that are paralyzing you, you realize that, in fact, anxiety is not as big as it seems. It loses its power to control you because you are becoming bigger than it. Peterson constantly reminds us that growth doesn't happen in your comfort zone. Growth happens when you allow yourself to be challenged. When you push yourself beyond your limits, when you face what you're afraid to face. And that's precisely what anxiety is trying to teach you. It's not there to destroy you. It's there to challenge you, to teach you that you can be more than you think you are. True transformation only happens when you decide to go deep, when you decide to look at the chaos, not with fear, but with the confidence that it is there that you will find your true potential. This requires you to be willing to step outside your comfort zone, to confront the parts of yourself you've been neglecting. But this is precisely what will free you from anxiety. Your anxiety will only lose its grip on you when you stop running from it, when you stop running from the shadows and start confronting them head-on. This is the path to true freedom. It's not an easy path, but it's a path worth taking. Anxiety, my friend, is like a monster you prefer to ignore, a monster that lurks, waiting for the right moment to strike. At first, it's small. You ignore it, pushing it to the back of your mind, trying to pretend it doesn't exist. But the more you ignore it, the more it grows. The problem is, this monster won't go away. It won't disappear. The more you try to get rid of it without confronting it, the more it grows and grows stronger. Have you ever noticed this in your life? When you ignore the signs that something isn't right, when you avoid looking at what's really bothering you, anxiety begins to grow. It begins to take over more and more areas of your life, to the point where it begins to swallow everything you value most. Your relationships, your peace, even your dreams. This monster you've been trying to ignore will become so large that it will dominate everything. And when it attacks with overwhelming force, leaving you grounded. The question here is, will you keep running from this monster? Will you keep trying to ignore it until it becomes bigger than you? Or will you face it head-on, before it swallows you? I know it's not easy. I know you're afraid, but that fear won't go away if you hide. On the contrary, it will grow, and by the time you realize it, it will be too late. Now imagine this. You enter a dark room where this monster is waiting. It seems bigger than ever, scarier than anything you've ever faced. But as you get closer, you begin to notice something incredible. This monster, which seemed so large and invincible, begins to shrink. It loses its strength as you face it, head-on. By the time you finally stop running, it no longer has any power over you. And do you know what the secret is? The secret is the courage to look the monster in the eye. Face it, not with anger, not with hatred, but with a willingness to understand what it represents. The anxiety monster is not an enemy you need to destroy. It is a reflection of what you have been ignoring, of everything you have been avoiding within yourself. It is the manifestation of all the fears you have refused to face. When you face this monster, you will realize that it no longer has power over you, because true strength comes from facing, acknowledging, and integrating those parts of yourself that you have been trying to hide. This monster doesn't go away because you want it to. It goes away when you decide you're no longer going to let it control your life. It goes away when you look at it, acknowledge it, and begin to change your relationship with it. Anxiety, which once seemed like something you couldn't control, begins to become something you can master, not through brute force, but through the courage to understand that it's part of your growth process. When you embrace this truth, anxiety loses its ability to paralyze you. You are stronger than anxiety. I know you feel its weight, I know it feels immense, but remember this: it only has power over you if you allow it. It will only control you if you continue to ignore what it's trying to tell you. The monster, however frightening it may seem, loses all its power when you decide to face it. When you see it for what it truly is, a reflection of the things you're afraid to confront, it dissolves. It loses its power because you're no longer running from it. The point isn't to eliminate fear. The point is to understand that fear and anxiety are just part of the journey. They're signs that you're about to face something important, something that will take you to a deeper place of self-knowledge and growth. The further you distance yourself from this monster, the more it will grow. The more you face it head-on, the more it will shrink. Not by magic, but because you've become bigger than it. The monster isn't bigger than you. The real battle is against the fear of facing it, and when you decide to face it, you'll realize it's weaker than you imagine. And then finally, you'll begin to live freely, knowing that, no matter how much anxiety still lingers, it will never again have control over you. This is the moment to make the choice, the moment to turn the key and decide to stop living with anxiety and control. Because maybe, just maybe, today is the day you'll decide to stop running and start facing the truth. The turning point doesn't happen suddenly. It's not something magical that happens overnight. No, it's an internal decision, a shift in the way you see your life. You may be sitting here right now, listening to these words, thinking this is all beautiful, but deep down, doubting that you can truly change. Doubting that anxiety will ever truly stop being a prison. I understand. I know it's easy to feel like, after so many years of fighting it, there's no hope, but I'm here to tell you that, contrary to what you think, this is the turning point. You have the power to choose. The key to change is in your hands, and no, it won't be easy. I won't promise you that. From this moment on, anxiety will disappear once and for all. I won't deceive you by saying that everything will be magical. Life doesn't work that way. But what I can guarantee you is that when you choose to face anxiety head-on, when you choose to stop running away, you'll be taking the first step toward regaining control. And that choice, however difficult, however terrifying, will change everything. Because courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is acting despite fear. It's making the decision to move forward, even with your heart racing and your mind in chaos. And that, my friend, is what will set you free. Because you may be shaking inside right now, you may feel the anxiety pounding. But by making this decision, you're telling yourself that you will no longer be held hostage by it. Remember that anxiety is just part of the journey. It's not the end. It doesn't define who you are, it's not your destination. You can continue living with it as a burden, or you can learn to walk alongside it, without letting it control your life. This is the turning point. This is the moment when you say to yourself, I choose to move forward no matter how much I have to fight pain or fear. I know you feel like fear is unbearable. I know it feels like anxiety will swallow you whole, that it will paralyze you forever. But I want you to understand something very important. Anxiety has no power over you. It only has power when you let it define your life. When you decide to no longer live under the dominion of fear, you regain control. You take control of your own life and begin to shape your reality. This is the moment you decide to live with purpose, with the courage to continue, even when you tremble inside. Because courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is acting despite it. And when you make this decision, when you face anxiety head-on, you will realize it is not as powerful as it seemed. It is just a part of your journey, a part of your story. And by deciding to no longer let it dictate the rules, you will begin to become the person you always knew you could be. Yes, it will be difficult. You will fall. You will doubt. But in the end, that's what will make you stronger. And that's what will allow you to live a more free life. You don't have to wait for anxiety to disappear to start living. You can start living now. And when you do, you'll notice that with each step, it loses a little more power over you. I'm not here to sell you an illusion. I'm not here to promise you that anxiety will disappear from your life once and for all. The truth is, there's no magic solution, no trick that will make everything go away overnight. But what I can guarantee is that transformation is possible. And more importantly, that real transformation doesn't come from the desire to eliminate anxiety, but from learning to live with it in a way that no longer lets it control your life. Yes, you will face difficult times. There will be days when fear feels overwhelming, when anxiety feels unbearable. But that doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're on the right path. Because growth doesn't come from a smooth, obstacle-free path. True growth comes from facing hardships, from getting up when you fall, and most importantly, from keeping going even when you're shaking with fear inside. Transformation isn't instantaneous. It's not something you can achieve with a quick fix or a superficial change. It comes with time, with the constant effort of looking within yourself, learning to understand yourself better, and most importantly, facing your fears. And yes, this will challenge you. It will test your courage and your willingness to move forward even when you feel powerless. But as difficult as it may be, the reward is worth it. Because when you start facing anxiety head-on, when you start connecting with it instead of running from it, you begin to realize that it loses its power over you. You begin to regain control, not the control of forcing anxiety to disappear, but the control of how you react to it. And that is what will set you free. I'm not here to promise you a life without challenges. There's no escaping difficult times. But I can promise you one thing. True freedom comes when you begin to live the life you truly want to live, with courage and authenticity, even if it means confronting your fears and insecurities. Anxiety, contrary to what many people think, is not an enemy. It's just a shadow of what you've been ignoring within yourself. When you start looking at this shadow and seeing it as an opportunity for growth, you become stronger. You realize that instead of living in fear of it, you can use anxiety as a springboard to become a better, stronger, more resilient person. And as you go through this transformation process, you'll begin to realize something incredible. Anxiety, while it may still pop up from time to time, will no longer dominate your life. It will lose its power because you will no longer give it control. You will be in control. You will be in charge of your life, your choices, and your reaction to what happens around you. True transformation doesn't come from trying to avoid anxiety, but from learning to live with it. And that's the big shift. You're no longer trying to get rid of anxiety. Instead, you begin to see that it's part of who you are, but it no longer needs to control your life. You can live with it, but now you're the leader of your own journey. You take control of your life and begin living with purpose. The transformation will happen gradually. Don't expect anxiety to disappear from your life once and for all. Instead, see each day as an opportunity to grow, learn, and evolve. Anxiety will become just a part of your growth process, and over time, it will lose its grip on you. You don't get over anxiety by trying to feel better. This quote from Jordan Peterson is one of the most powerful you can hear when dealing with anxiety. Because in truth, anxiety isn't something to simply eliminate. It's not something you'll overcome by trying to run from it or seeking momentary relief. The truth is, anxiety is a part of the process of living. It's a natural reaction, a response of the body and mind to stress, challenges, and often, change. But what Peterson means by this is that instead of trying to feel better all the time, you need to start becoming better. And that's the turning point. The real key to dealing with anxiety is not seeking its absence, but seeking personal transformation, seeking inner empowerment. Because when you become a better, stronger, more resilient person, anxiety loses its grip on you. The biggest mistake we make is waiting for things to become easier, more comfortable. We hope that life will give us some kind of guarantee that we will no longer feel fear or anxiety. But life doesn't work that way. We can't wait for anxiety to disappear to start living fully. What we can do, however, is start living with it. We can learn to navigate life's turbulent waters, even with anxiety as our companion. And that is what will truly set us free. You overcome by becoming a better person. Peterson isn't saying you have to be perfect. He's saying that as you grow, as you face your fears, as you make difficult decisions and begin to live authentically, anxiety will lose its grip. It will lose its power because you will be stronger than it. The key is not to try to feel better, but to become better. A better person, a stronger human being, more courageous in the face of fear and uncertainty. And that doesn't mean anxiety will disappear. It may even reappear. But what changes is how you approach it. What changes is that now you know you're not at its mercy. You know you can live alongside it without letting it control your life. And that's one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. The power to not let anxiety dictate your destiny. Anxiety will challenge you. It will push you out of your comfort zone. But it will also teach you something very valuable, that you are stronger than you imagine. That, within you, there is a strength you may never have recognized. And as you become that better person, that stronger person, you will begin to see that anxiety is not the monster you feared. It is just a part of your journey, a part of the growth process. You'll begin to see moments of anxiety as opportunities for growth. And over time, anxiety will become an ally that, instead of paralyzing you, will propel you to grow, to face your fears, to live with more courage and authenticity. And that's what will transform your life. You don't overcome anxiety by trying to feel better. You overcome it by becoming a better person. Every step you take, every fear you face, every moment of courage you choose to have is a step toward becoming stronger, more authentic, more aligned with your true essence. When you reach this point, you'll realize that anxiety, instead of being an obstacle, is an opportunity to evolve, to grow, and to become the person you were born to be. There is no growth without challenge, and anxiety is one of the greatest teachers you can have. So instead of trying to run away from it, embrace it. Use it as fuel for your transformation. Because when you become a better person, anxiety loses its power over you. I know all of this isn't easy to absorb. And yes, it can be scary to begin this journey, to face anxiety head-on and acknowledge the power it has over you. But the truth is, change begins with a simple step. Sometimes it feels like we're alone on this journey, doesn't it? Sometimes anxiety makes us believe that no one else understands, that we're the only ones facing this internal battle. But we're not alone. If this message resonated with you, if it touched your heart, I urge you to share it. Because maybe, just maybe, someone you know, someone around you, is experiencing exactly what you experienced, struggling with anxiety, feeling lost, and unsure of where to turn. Maybe that person needs to hear exactly what you heard. Hear, because the right words at the right time have the power to change everything. And if you share this message, you might just help someone take the first step on their journey of transformation. It's not about you or me. It's about all of us. Each of us has a role to play in collective healing, in transforming the society we live in. When we share something that can make a difference in someone else's life, we're creating a support network, a network that can change everything. When you share something that touched your soul, something that can illuminate someone else's path, you become an agent of change. You help break the cycle of loneliness, disconnection, and fear. And in doing so, you also do yourself a huge favor. You connect with something bigger, with the human network of solidarity, empathy, and growth. We all face hardships. We all go through moments when we feel lost, when we wonder if we can move forward. But the truth is, together, we are stronger. And by sharing our pain and our journey of transformation, we create a community of support, understanding, and empathy. So if this touched your heart, if this message made you reflect, share it. Because as much as you may have felt alone in your struggle with anxiety, you are not. We are all connected, and what we do for one, we do for all. Perhaps right now, the person you share this with needs to hear exactly what you read here. Perhaps, through this simple gesture, you'll help someone take the first step toward freeing themselves from anxiety, toward beginning their own journey of self-transformation. Jordan Peterson reminds us that the right words, at the right time, can literally save a life. And if this resonates with you, if you feel this message has the power to touch someone, share it. Because just as you are beginning to take steps toward your own transformation, you can be the key to someone else's transformation. It's much more than just sharing content. It's an act of love, compassion, and empathy. And by doing so, you become part of something much bigger. You help spread a message of hope, courage, and transformation. A message that says, yes, you can overcome anxiety. Yes, you can become the person you were born to be. Because ultimately, we all deserve to live a life where anxiety doesn't control us. We all deserve to live with courage, purpose, and the freedom to be who we truly are. And by sharing this message, you're contributing to this collective mission of transformation. So don't hesitate, share it, because sometimes a simple gesture can be the difference between someone's emotional life and death. And by doing so, you're being a beacon of light in someone else's life.